Joe Manchin hates his own voters. He literally believes that they are too lazy and stupid to wisely spend government money. Now, again, that's not me saying it. That's people who he has confided in, people that he has talked to. According to a report from HuffPost, in recent months, Manchin, where, he's of course publicly said that, oh no, the reason I'm against Build Back Better and the child tax credit specifically is because I'm just really concerned about the cost. I'm concerned about the cost. I'm concerned about inflation. I'm concerned about COVID. And we need to focus on that. But privately, he thinks that payments, and this is what he has told to fellow Democrats, that parents shouldn't get the child tax credit because they'll use it to buy drugs. Drugs! This is according to two sources familiar with the senator's comments. Manchin has also told colleagues that he believes Americans would fraudulently use proposed paid sick leave in order to feign being sick to go on hunting trips. A source familiar with his comments told HuffPost. So, see, Americans, they're so lazy and stupid that they will just lie about the tax credits and just buy drugs and then go hunting. Now, those were two incredibly important parts of Build Back Better. Again, paid leave and the child tax credits would have massively improved the material conditions of working people. Again, the child tax credit has been in place for a while, and it already has helped people's lives. In fact, initial data suggests that the expanded program cut child poverty and child hunger substantially in this country. In fact, the census survey showed that most low-income parents said that they had spent some of the child tax credit on food more than any other item. So all these food insecure households, with that expanded child tax credit that's available to them, and actually it could have done even more good had more Americans signed up for it and knew that they could sign up for this, it cut child hunger and poverty by a substantial amount. In fact, before the credit, about 30% of low-income parents said that their household was food insecure, sometimes just not having enough food to eat. After July, the proportion of that dropped to 21%. That's a 9% decrease, meaning that it's actually working. In fact, to compare it, low-income households with no children showed no decline because, low-income households without kids, they don't get the child tax credit because they don't have children. So you look at that sharp decrease, and you can only deduce that, the child tax credit has worked because now these families are no longer food insecure, or much less food insecure. Now, another analysis estimated that the payments prevented about 2 million children from going without enough food. So that's just to put it into real numbers. 2 million children it helped to feed. Another study estimated the tax credit reduced poverty rate among children from 16% to 12%, effectively keeping 3 million children out of poverty. Black and Latino children were especially likely to benefit. And that's just food. There are other things that people spent this money on. And no, I'm not talking about drugs. Actually, many of them used this money to help their child's education. In the census survey, 30% of all families and about 40% of low-income families said that they used some of the money for educational costs, including school supplies, which we know schools do not have enough funding to provide school supplies for all their children. In fact, a lot of times teachers have to pay out of their own pockets to be able to get school supplies for their kids. In this case, now you have parents that are using this child tax credit to help get their kids supplies that they need to learn. They also used money for private school tuition, transportation to school, or even tutoring. Yeah. Black and Hispanic parents were especially likely to use the money for education. Once again, minority students benefit. And And yet Joe Manchin says, oh, no, we got to get rid of it because they're going to buy drugs. Again, these were the most common things parents said that they spent the money on: food and education. You know what? How many households wasted this money? Well, about 4%. 4% of households reported using the money for recreational goods, such as sports equipment or toys, which apparently that's what Joe Manchin would say is a waste. So, no, he's just factually wrong. But understand that this is part of the contempt that Joe Manchin has for the poor and working class of his own state. And by the way, West Virginia is the second poorest state in the country. They could use the stuff that's in Build Back Better. Let me show you the rankings here. West Virginia, 47th on healthcare, 45th on education, 48th on economic mobility, dead last on infrastructure. It's 47th on economic opportunity. The state is a disaster, and it's not because of the people. No, it's because of the leadership. There are wonderful people in West Virginia, hardworking, good, honest people. But they are represented by others who think that they're all lazy, drug-addled idiots. These are conservative talking points 101. It's the same kind of rhetoric that led to drug testing for people to get food stamps and welfare. You know how many people they found when they did that? Less than 1%. Less than 1%. Now, West Virginia itself launched its own drug screening program for welfare recipients in 2017. You know how many people they found? 131. 131 applicants tested positive for drugs. A small fraction of the thousands of program beneficiaries. Those are the facts, but it turns out facts don't matter. No, they just don't want to help poor people. And they're using drugs as an excuse to shame people in poverty. That's the message that they're sending. Hey, poor people, you're both irresponsible because you're poor, obviously. People who are not, people who are responsible can't ever be poor. No, that's a trait of the irresponsible drug users. Not true at all. It's not true at all. They're doing poverty shaming. They want to say that people who are poor in America, well, that's absolutely their fault and has nothing to do with anything else. Doesn't have nothing to do with the system that upwardly distributes wealth at the very top instead of to the workers, where much of that wealth actually belongs. It belongs to the workers. You're entitled to the value that your labor creates. Wages are supposed to reflect that, but they haven't. They don't. Not for a long, long time. We're more productive as a people than we've ever been before. Have wages kept up with that? No. Have prices continued to rise? Yes. Inflation is a real issue. And guess what? We're not doing anything to help that. The reason that we have so much inflation is because of greed. You have the people at the top that have all the money. And guess what? For them, it's not enough because they still raise their prices despite making billions of dollars in profit during a pandemic because they could. And that's a fact. That's a fact. It's all greed. Now, one last thing here, real quick. Now, there are Democrats that like to write people off in red states. It's true. I don't agree with that. Now, of course, I understand that there are a lot of conservative voters that you're never going to be able to reach. The unreachables, the real hardcore MAGA cultists, right? But there are Republican voters that you can, and you could do so with good policy. Again, the majority of people in West Virginia supported the provisions in the $3.5 trillion Build Back Better plan, including 68% of West Virginians and a majority of Republicans. As for the child tax credits, again, incredibly popular. According to a Reuters Ipsos poll, 59% of U.S. adults, including 75% of people who identified themselves as Democrats and 41% of people who identified as Republicans, support the child tax credit. And again, the child tax credits mostly went to red states. The top 10 states by average monthly child tax credit payments in August all came from the West and the Midwest. Utah, Idaho, South Dakota, Alaska, Nebraska, well, almost all, I should say, Wyoming, North Dakota, Iowa, Kansas, and Montana, with monthly payments ranging from $515 to $456 in August. All voted last year for Trump over Biden And all but Kansas have Republican governors. Weird. It's almost as if red states have to be a little bit poorer than blue states. That's real weird. I thought that they were more fiscally conservative and therefore better for business. Weird. Well, maybe they are better for business, but that doesn't mean it's better for the workers. Doesn't mean it's better for the average American who's working 2 or 3 jobs to get by on minimum wage. But the point is, these credits, the tax credits, are popular, they're effective, and they're not tainted by massive fraud or abuse. Joe Manchin is simply a liar who regurgitates Republican talking points about his own voters, about how they're irresponsible. Oh, you can't trust them with government money, when he's more than happy to give government money to his contractor buddies, corporations, because that's who he works for. If you enjoyed this video, please give us a like and share with your friends. You can subscribe and help out the channel by becoming a patron. It's patreon.com/Jeff Waldorf, or you can become a channel member as well by hitting the join button below.